Welcome to the Chinsani Show. How are you doing today? Where you are?
No, I'm doing great. I'm in Germany. Very excited for this week, and yeah, doing great. Despite the current developments in the market, but yeah, doing great, and yeah, looking forward to the week.
Nice, amazing. Well, Jonathan, I'd love to start this conversation with kind of like your day in the life of a founder of a sports project, right? Starts sports startup project in crypto. And I always love to ask this with founders is what is do you have a routine every day? Like how's the day in the life of Jonathan of a startup like?
It's a great question. So yeah, I have a son actually. So I get up early. I get up between 5 and 6, and then have a little bit of time with my family, with my son waking up. But then it's pretty structured. So I do some sport in the morning, maybe even some meditation, like very 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 classy. And then we have some check-ins with the team. Team is remote. So yeah, I have a few hours just family, just taking care of myself, doing sports. And then get back to and then basically start the day. But since we're doing sports, this is kind of part of the integrated program I'm doing. And yeah, I think very very important. I think to kind of also have something out of the work, I guess, right? So keep your head fresh, and going maybe for a run in the morning, that kind of clears the mind, and then you're ready to roll.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, seems like pretty standard, right? Kind of you get in your workout, take care of the kids, get ready, and then get into the nitty gritty. And so usually, does your schedule compile of a lot of meetings or buildings? Like how is it like kind of on a daily basis?
Yeah, it really changes, like, to be honest. So I'm traveling a lot. So since we have been now pretty active over the last 3 years in the sports world. So we are active in different industries. So I'm depending on the schedule, but there are this tennis tournaments taking place. So we have started initially. I'm sure we will cover this, but we've started in tennis. So there's this tennis tournament schedule, right? So when the important tournaments taking place, then I'm at the tournaments, yeah, meeting people, meeting agents, meeting players. Now with poker, obviously, actually next week I'm gonna fly to Jeju, yeah, to the Triton tournament series. So that's gonna be exciting. So so that involves a lot of traveling. So this can be like a week full of traveling, and then the next week will be completely different. Just being locked in the office, getting work done, having meetings with the team internally, and yeah, just plan the next steps.
Yeah. It's interesting when I talked to a lot of founders and stuff, and it seems like, yeah, like building a project, right? It's not a 9 to 5 thing, especially if you're a founder, right? There's a lot of moving pieces, and it seems like daily, right? It's not like you have like there are different, obviously you have routines, but there are different things every day you need to accomplish. A lot of traveling too. Like I was interviewing the CEO of Bitmart. He was just telling me like his schedule is 50% of his time as a CEO is to travel, right? Go to different conferences, events, like where you're going. And it's do you enjoy that?
So I think it changes. Like for me, I'm not such a big fan, to be honest, like of conferences. I think they play an important role, and if you know how to deal with them, then you can also make something like very good out of it, and get value out of meetings and just partnerships, meetings, and people in the ecosystem you can schedule, because everybody's at the same place. But on the other side, it's also just a lot of value at conferences just happen spontaneous, right? So these things can be planned, and can be planned into like a super tight 24 hours, 48-hour schedule. So you need to also kind of incorporate a little bit, just time being spent there, and that makes me always a little bit nervous, yeah, because I know I could get so much work done being in front of the laptop, being in the office, and just being very efficient. But yeah, I think you just have to remind yourself on these things. And the same with also these like sports events, right? So it's the same thing. It's not at a tennis tournament. It's very difficult to schedule with agents, yeah, because you always know the schedule of the next day in the evening of today. So because then that's when the players are being scheduled, and that's also when the agents just know when they have availability. So yeah, it's not the most efficient thing. I'm German, so I'm like very in favor of being efficient and getting things done. So I have to step a little bit out of my comfort zone here and embrace these type of things.
Yeah. No, that's actually, I appreciate you sharing that, right? Because sometimes, like, as a founder, you might be strong in one aspect and maybe not as strong or not as comfortable, but like, you really gotta, seems like, put yourself out there and kind of jump out your comfort zone as well, right? Like, I'm sure you're going to a lot of events and stuff like that, especially, being, a sports project. So it's really cool to see that. And, like you mentioned before, and like I mentioned in the beginning, right? So you're like a founder of FANtium, which is like a sports startup. But what's different between this startup compared to other startups people in my audience have heard of is that it involves with crypto, right? The crypto element of it. But before we go to maybe the crypto element of it, what made you want to start a sports startup, and then on top of that, using crypto and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I get this asked a lot. I mean, depending on the markets, right? So if the markets are down, like this is the question: why are you doing crypto? I mean, I get the sports thing, right? It's fun. It's it might be your passion whatsoever. Why the crypto thing? And then if the market is up, it's obviously a no-brainer again, right? So yeah, but why sports? So like I have a business background, so I've never had anything professionally do some the sports, but studied business. I started my first company, sold them, and then I was just angel investing a lot, like for years, just full time deploying. That's how I got into crypto. So I got like a sense of the technology. I saw the power in different areas, and at one point it was just too boring for me, just being on the investor side. And I feel like if you want to be if you want to have lived like a fulfilled life, I think you need to do things what are you good at, and you need to spend time and do like work on these things at things which have a positive impact, right? And where you just have a passion, because things come naturally. Like if you work on something which has a kind of deeper impact on different levels, but then you're also good at it. And for me, it was always passion. I was always passionate about sports. Yeah, I've been always a competitive person, even though I've never kind of played the sport or any sports professionally. I was good, but never like on a full professional level. But
what
like,
sports did you play?
So I played tennis, like tennis a lot. So tennis is probably my number one sports. Played also a little bit like football, but I played pretty competitively tennis, and that made me then also kind of decide when I started FANtium around about 3-4 years ago to start with tennis, because I was just passionate and I saw this problem in the tennis world.
Yeah, and you mentioned about like kind of like the problem in the tennis world, right? And I'm just curious, like, how do you think what you guys are building in blockchain crypto kind of solves that issue in tennis and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think coming back to your also previous question, right? So why crypto and sports? So what I saw on being on the investor side, I saw this financialization of everything happening, and I realized that like in the future, I think everything, a lot of things, especially in the finance world, will run on crypto infrastructure. And then if you look at sports, obviously you have different layers which will move on chain, and we've seen this now already. That obviously, prediction markets being one of the hype topics. So this whole kind of opinion markets, evolution of betting, maybe now moving into prediction markets. So that's something I think where the technology has a real added value, and it's just superior, and that's where betting or opinions markets will take place. But the same goes is also true for the financialization and tokenization of sports, of performances, of financial needs whatsoever. So this also trickles down in different areas. And in tennis, like we saw this big need by just upcoming tennis players. Yeah, even the best tennis players or tennis talents in the world, between, let's say, 14 and 18, 19 years old, they have this financing need. Yeah, so it happened to Carlos Alcaraz when he was 16 years old. He didn't have money because you don't earn any prize money earnings yet. There's no relevant sponsorships happening, at different stages. So eventually you need to kind of pre-finance that costs, like traveling, paying a coach, what so on. And so it can take. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. How do I was just curious when it comes to like up and coming like tennis players, tennis stars, or how do they usually pay for that before they get sponsored? Is it out of pocket themselves?
Yeah, it's interesting. So even like either the parents have it, right? So maybe the parents have money. The parents might be tennis coach themselves, so they can cover kind of like the coaching side of things. And then there's also an industry, and it's pretty private and secretive. So there are just people with access to this tennis world who see this also as just an asset class, and they upfront the money, right? So they finance, they lend the money, they finance the money, but even though sometimes there are good people, obviously, who just do this out of passion, maybe as well, because they like the player and they like to support. But then there's also a pretty dark and gray industry. So it's actually there's an organized crime being active in the tennis player financing market. Only like nobody talks about it. It's their entry, so to say, to getting a tennis player flipped. So what they usually do is they provide these like large sums of money, like let's say $400,000, $500, and then there's a guaranteed payback. And then if the player is not becoming successful, right, there's match fixing then happening as a way for the tennis player to kind of repay the initial loan. So it's pretty dark. So and I think that's where crypto can play an important role in just helping these players to tokenize their future earnings and make them investable and enable them to raise the money they need for their careers.
Yeah. So how does it work with your platform FANtium to help these players?
Yeah, so with our first platform called FANtium.com, it's an RWA platform for tennis players. So it's a security, right? So it's these are tokens the tennis players can give out. The tokens are one-to-one backed with the actual prize money earnings of these players. So when you buy a token, you actually own a percentage of the tennis players' prize money earnings over time. So we have a whole team which is who are evaluating these players, to come up with like a realistic projection, what best guess, what we believe is realistic potential of given players, and then we can recommend that to the player. But in the end, the player uses the platform. The player offers how much percentage of the prize money they want to offer, and how much money they need now, let's say for the next 12, 18 months, and then they can raise the money. And as an investor, you can, or just tennis fan, you can basically back these players, and then it's like venture investment, right? You can earn, 50, 60x on your investment in like the best case scenarios, or even more. But you can also lose everything if the player never becomes professional. But that's the financial aspect, which is obviously a driving factor. But then you also have other utilities, right? So you have a direct contract with the player. So it's not like betting where you have a binary outcome, or even the prediction markets. Here you are long-term invested, so you're a long-term stakeholder, and are participating in the success and in the career of the player. You can visit the player, you can visit tournaments. Completely new, and provides this like new experience. Also, just following the player and engaging with the sports. Yeah,
no, that's pretty cool. So it's kind of like investing in, like, at least for the player, they have a avenue for getting supported financially, right? And as a fan of the player, you can, like you said, get a stake of their success, right? So it's like helping the player, also providing a value for the fans, right? To invest in future stars, the next Federer or Nadal or something like that.
Exactly, and that works in sports where even the best. First of all, there needs to be financing need, right? So otherwise, there is not really like incentive alignment, right? So if the player doesn't have a financial need, like it's also the player is not incentivized to offer something which is attractive for both the player but also the investor. So there needs to be a win-win happening. But then it's a very exciting thing for the player to do, and we have some of the best junior players on the platform. So we have developed FANtium into the #1 tennis player financing platform in the world. We work together with all the agencies. We have amazing investors like Dominic Thiem. He's US Open champion, Grand Slam champion. So he's been super helpful with the product. So that's super exciting. And we have changed basically players' lives. So, we have had also cases where investors and the player became friends. So now they hang out with each other. So it's very motivating to see that kind of impact we had already in the tennis industry using crypto as a infrastructure technology mean to deliver that experience.
Yeah, I'm just curious as well. Like, first of all, that's pretty cool to see that how crypto is actually helping people and stuff like that. But when you pitch to these like tennis stars, tennis players about your platform using crypto, like, do you ever get pushback, or how's that like, those conversations?
Yeah, a lot of education, obviously, was necessary in the beginning, to explain, why crypto, how does it work. We try to abstract like all crypto elements with that product, because it's RWA, it's backed, it's tennis players, there's also a lot of just non-crypto people using the platform. So it's the experience is definitely not like super crypto degen, right? So it's on USDC, so it's stable coins, it runs on stable coins. You can basically just create a wallet with your email address. You don't even kind of realize it. You can pay with Apple Pay, right? So like there are all these like abstraction elements which are necessary just because it's very Web2, it's very tennis fans, it's very just just tennis people doing this. But still there's a lot of friction. Like even though you can try as hard as you can, right? Still today, and it has already improved a lot if you compare it to a couple of years, but still today, when it comes to on-ramp, off-ramp, there are a lot of frictions being involved, and that's something where you need to provide like a very good experience and service to both the tennis player, but then also maybe the high net worth individual who maybe runs a family office, who's passionate about tennis and wants to deploy maybe a couple of 100,000 across different tennis players, but doesn't have a wallet, right? So you need to have a very close and good customer service here.
Yeah, I like how you're saying that your customers, right, or just your users of the platform are not like crypto native, which is actually a good thing in a way, because I'm sure you're like this, but like I'm a firm believer in consumer crypto, meaning like real consumers using crypto in their everyday life, right? Like actually, how I got onboarded to crypto actually is through sports, through NBA Top Shot, right? I know I onboarded a lot of people, and I just like to use the platform because I like to collect the highlights. And honestly, I didn't even know it was on a blockchain or crypto or anything, right? And it's cool that you guys have that same mindset and really building something's not like that's kind of needed, but it's innovative to what's out there. Because I don't know, is there anything out there what we call Web2 that does this for tennis players or just for sports players that you can fund? No, right?
No, not really. I mean, we were the first one. I mean, there are some copycats and just other platforms trying to follow the same thing, but it was definitely like something unique to be done. And I agree. I think ultimately we need obviously the Web2 people, right? So I think in order to make this work, both are important. The Web3, like and the liquidity and just the kind of on-chain crypto infrastructure you can use, and also the liquidity which is happening there. I think it's very important now to kickstart things off. But eventually you need the Web2. So you need to provide like a real value add, in the real life, to build something sustainable. And only if you make that happen, I think it will last, and it will have a shot of being the next big thing. Because of that financialization, because of that, already, performance, tokenizing performance, but then also the different kind of financial needs in the sports world connected with these existing communities and this like high emotion and emotional bond between a fan and a player or a club the fan is following. I think this has really the potential to become this like next big category in crypto, financialization of sports. And so that's where we are operating. And we started off with, an RWA platform for performance, with the tennis player case. But then we also wanted to bring more sports assets on chain. So we developed other products on top, where, we were going more into the crypto direction and also attracting a crypto audience, just because we wanted to use that crypto infrastructure which was being built out over the last years in the tokenization, meme coin, ownership coin space.
Yeah, and kind of leading. I'm sure you're leading to what you guys are launching this week, right? As we're recording, some really exciting things. So, other than tennis, right? Like, what are sports are you guys kind of like tackling?
So for now, it's just tennis, but you can obviously look in all sorts of sports where there is a big financial need in the beginning, but then also a financial big outcome later on if a player or if a club or team really succeeds. And that applies to obviously things like golf, Formula racing, so Formula 1, F1, F2, F3, F4. But then, many also like smaller sports where you have that pattern. For now, like FANtium is just focused on the tennis side of things, keeping developing this, but eventually, I think at one point we also think that both models will merge once regulation is more clearer and more developed, and you know what to do and what to expect in order to combine both really financial utility, but then also the regulatory constraints you have when it comes to these financial assets.
Yeah. And speaking of financial assets, again, I kind of alluded to it, but right, you guys are launching a token, a cryptocurrency, crypto token called Bank, right? And kind of more going into the poker space and stuff like that. And I'm just curious, like, how did that idea come about? From tennis to poker now.
Yeah, the backstory is actually interesting. So after building FANtium, we've launched a second product because we wanted to bring more sports assets on chain. And the second product is called FanStrike. So it was a permissionless launch, but it still is a permissioned launch pad for sports coins, where what we call the sports capital markets. So it's coins where you don't have a one-to-one backing with actual prize money earnings whatsoever, but we implement basically just flywheel and buybacks mechanisms, which happen already successfully and have been proven out in the crypto token world, and we apply that to sports. And FanStrike was a big success, so we launched it in the beta version without any marketing. We just put it out there. We immediately had traction, over 5 million in trading volume, 100K net revenue being generated. So it just popped up. These coins were being launched on bonding curves. Eventually we learned a lot. We applied this learnings. We thought, okay, how can we kind of apply this now into the product sports ecosystem? And the product, the result is now the bank token we are launching. So poker will be now in V2, so to say, of FanStrike, the first ecosystem we are now looking to build out. So it's a bankroll token, what we call bankroll, where we use the funds we collect. We use that to finance professional poker players in high stakes tournaments, and then the returns we're going to generate are recycled back into the tokens, so that you have a kind of indirect effect. You participate in the performance of these poker investments and poker players. And the reason why we picked poker is, and that's something little people know, even the best poker players in the world, they sell some of the tournament buy-ins to investors. So it's already a capital market, so to say. Yeah. So we are bringing this on chain.
Yeah. So wait. So sorry, I maybe didn't catch that. So the poker players already did with the investors. What they do with the investors again?
Yes, exactly. So in poker, even the best poker players in the world, they sell a percentage of their tournament buy-ins at high stakes tournaments to
Oh.
investors, to private investors, because they need to manage variance, right? So a poker player plays, maybe 100 tournaments a year, maybe around 5 to 7 million in tournament buy-ins. So that's real money. And a poker player still has variance, even over a year, like even over a couple of years. So they need to manage that. So because like only a few players have these like 5 to 7 million available. So in order to manage variance, these poker players sell a stake of these buy-ins to investors. It's called selling action. And then as an investor, you can participate in the tournament prize money earnings of these players. And it's a whole industry, right? So it's private, yeah. It's very fragmented. It's very hidden. It happens in like private Discord groups, WhatsApp channels, spreadsheets. There are a couple of big groups being active, and we have now developed this access into that world because we onboarded some of the world's best poker players into the Topco, even some professional poker investors who have done this for many years successfully. And through that network we have developed, we are now able to bring this on chain and make this public and available with Bank. So how Bank works is we are using that money we collect. We allocate that into these buy-ins, and if done successfully, this is can be very profitable. And then you as a holder, you get a diversified exposure, like an index, so to say, in this high stakes poker world.
Yeah. So take a step back real quick about like the poker players currently, right? Like you said, they kind of give a share to the investors and stuff. So the usual and typically, right, these poker players, how, and you said they communicate through Discord, through WhatsApp channels. I guess they're using fiat, right? They're not using crypto at that point, right? It's kind of more like under table cash. How does that work? At least currently.
It's actually it's a lot of crypto, because poker and crypto, they go way back, right? So the relationship was always very, very strong. Poker players were one of the first just Bitcoin or just crypto adopters because they had difficulties just getting fiat money into poker sites. So they've been always embracing crypto, and that's why also in the poker world, crypto is just even it's more popular than fiat. And if you look at these financing deals, a lot of them are in USDC. So it's already happening in crypto currencies, and there are also a lot of crypto investors involved in it. So poker investors who have made their money in crypto, but even though it's on chain and it's happening in crypto, it's not available to the public, right? So that's a very important thing to understand, that being crypto doesn't necessarily mean it's democratized and it's available to everybody. So yes, it's happening on crypto, but still it's very hidden and secretive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. I did not know that. Well, I did know that poker and crypto is very like intertwined, but like when it comes to poker players and tournaments, that there's a lot of crypto elements already in it, regardless of the of what. I mean, obviously you guys are trying to build something that's kind of innovative in that space, but no, that is so interesting that how it makes sense when it comes to like, I guess, money transfer is easier than going through traditional means and stuff like that. But no, that is so interesting. I had no idea it was like that in the poker game. Like they're already using crypto.
Yes, and you need and the technology just has so many advantages, and the features of cryptocurrency, they have a very high value add in the poker industry. Yeah, because you need fast settlement. Yeah, you need also you have this trust element, but there are sometimes just poker players who stake each other, who kind of finance each other, like within minutes, right? So the channels where somebody needs maybe 60K, and then he needs it in the next minutes, because he wants to play that tournament. He sees it's a very attractive table, what so on. So and then the transaction happens. Obviously somebody needs to kind of maybe vouch for a person. So it's this like very close community of crypto believers, right? Of crypto adopters. So and then also there are a lot of successful poker players who have had even more success with crypto. Because they invested early into cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or even other tokens. So they were in very early, and then they took the whole lift with them, and then there was the ICO boom, obviously, when there was also a lot of like liquidity and wealth being created. So that altogether kind of makes poker very, very interesting industry for us to start with.
Yeah. No, it is. And also like it really shows kind of like people that may be skeptical about crypto, the use case of crypto, right? Like you mentioned, like some crypto players, they need the money like now, right? Instantly, right? They need that. And if you go to traditional means, it's gonna take forever, right? At least one business day, at least, or whatever, 2 or 3, depending on what do you use as your banking service. But crypto, you could literally instantly peer-to-peer, wallet to wallet, can transfer money, right? And that's crazy. That's crazy. And I mean, this is where like I feel like a lot of my audience, right, more like Web 2 people too, especially on YouTube, where I'm sure a lot of your friends too, right? Like we call it normie. Or normal people, like, oh, what's the use of crypto? I think they just think it's investment, right? Just invest in Bitcoin, just set it to forget it. But how do we transact it with money, right? Especially in a world we live in now, right? So international, so global that, I mean, crypto it just makes sense. It just totally makes sense.
Yes, I mean, you can, like, to be obviously transparent, you can also do these staking deals without crypto, right? You can also do tennis player financing deals without crypto, but crypto just has so many different benefits, right? And potentials, what you can do with it. Yeah. So if you take the bank token, for example, we always say we have 3 different layers, right? So we have the bankroll layer, so the bankroll yield, that's the profit we're gonna earn coming out of these poker player investments. And if you do them the right way, you can earn 20 to 30% ROI on your capital. Yeah, just because these top players do it. Yeah, and there's a high financial need for them to do that. And the good thing is it's uncorrelated to the markets, right? So even if Bitcoin goes down or like crypto just nukes, the price money earnings they stay the same. So that's a hedge against the market, which is also true for tennis player financing investments. So that's the first value add. The second one is the trading fees. Yeah, and that's something that why I heavily believe that we will see this financialization in sports and also other industries. You see this also already with tokenized bonds or in public markets, but this will also come into the sports world because you accrue value through volume, through volatility, and through having people with different opinions and trading it against each other. Yeah, something you also see with the prediction markets, and that kind of also plays into the value of the token because the trading fees simply increase the bankroll we have. Yeah, so as more volume, as more opinions and more volatility, as higher the staking budget we can deploy into professional poker players. And then the third one is what we want to do is we want to make bank the poker ecosystem on our own launchpad FANstrike. Yeah, so we want to, in the second step, we want to enable individual poker players to do the same thing, to launch their own bank. Yeah, it's going to be called different, but they're going to be able to launch their own bankroll tokens, and then they, need to maybe stake bank in order to do so. The launch fees will feed back into the token. So a lot of things you can then add and develop on top over time using crypto technology.
Yeah. I like how you said crypto technology. I love it. Blockchain and stuff like that. Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, why call it bank? I think you mentioned it a little bit, right? But yeah. Why was the process behind naming this token?
Yeah, it's the it's the short form for bankroll. Yeah, so we feel like it's a very strong name. It's simple. People need to understand it, but it's just something, which is very normal, and it's something work already happening in the poker world. Yeah, so we feel like, being the bank, yeah, in poker is a good thing. And being, participating in bank, the bank never loses. So hopefully, like that's going to be true for also the bank token over time. But yeah, that was kind of the origin story of naming it bank.
Yeah. And I guess what you guys are doing, something I just thought of, right? Again, I'm a pretty big sports fan as well. Is it different from like, let's say, team sports versus individual sports? Like, I'm sure team sports, there's a lot more legality to do with their players versus individual, like a tennis player or a poker player, right? Like, I mean, have you guys talked to like sports leagues, teams, clubs? Like, I was just curious from that side of things.
Yes. So the use cases are obviously different, but I think the financialization of sports will happen both in the athlete individual sports arena, but also in the team sport arena, both on an athlete, but also on a club and team level. And if you look at that, obviously, let's say if you take clubs, right, football clubs. Yeah. So I'm from Germany, so number one sport is football here. So you have a huge financing need in the sports world, in the football world, on the club level, and that's because value is not captured equally, like depending on the sport. So obviously that's something we can talk for hours, but this leaves clubs with like this financing need, and then on the other side they have these like big communities. They have their own fans, right? And these fans, they want to support, they want to participate, yeah. And I think crypto and token infrastructure and the financialization of sports will open them different avenues and more options to also involve their fans when it comes to these financing opportunities. Huh?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned this right throughout the podcast, right? The prediction market, right? It's such a big thing now in the mainstream zeitgeist, right? Polymarket, Kalshi, and even with sports, right? Like I think, right, recently, Polymarket did a partnership with UFC, even, right? Trying to like, financialize, I guess, their fans to see outcomes or just, more benefit the league and stuff like that. So I totally agree with you. Like I feel like it is the future, especially with sports, where a new incentive, a new experience for fans, even, right? Kind of like.
Yes, and we have obviously like a vision, right, which includes prediction markets, which includes sports capital markets tokens. That's how we call it, and you can think about like a long-term prediction on a certain performance of an individual player, of an individual club, of an individual team, and that performance can kind of be feeding from different sources. And I think prediction markets can be also one source where maybe there's an avenue for creator-owned prediction markets where you let creators participate also in the prediction volume and prediction trading fees coming from their on-chain markets, and that can be potentially even being feeded back into these sports capital market tokens. So that's something we want to also incorporate down the road, but Today we see sports capital markets tokens like bank, right? Just as a long-term bet, so to say, in a given industry on a certain player, on a certain kind of asset class even. And then it's not binary like a bet. It's not binary like a prediction markets where you have a settlement event and then it's over. Here it's a long-term bet, so to say, with volatility going up and down. But it's a completely new experience, and you can even maybe hatch this later with prediction bets and prediction markets feeding back into these tokens.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like the prediction market and stuff like that. It's been taking over like pretty much the whole mainstream zeitgeist, and not just sports, right? But like politics and all that. But I was just also curious, Jonathan, like, when you're building this platform, right? With crypto and stuff, and let's be honest here, right? Crypto gets a terrible stigma. A lot of times on the news, right? I don't care where you are in the world. Usually people, when they hear crypto, they think scam, right? Because on the news, it always talks about crypto scams and stuff like that. So I was just curious, like, while building this platform, while building Bank, FANtium, like, has there been like instances where you get pushback from people and they're kind of like a little skeptical and stuff like that?
Never.
Really,
No,
really.
no, all the time, like all the time. Yeah, no, obviously, all the time, and especially in an industry like poker, where you have actually poker players who are very familiar with the industry, and I think you have these different shifts in markets, right? And then you have these advocates in a certain market, they're kind of pretty much against basically the next big trend of a second market, right? So if you look at, let's say, all the NFT traders who were, maybe playing fantasy sports or even Top Shot, right? And then when meme coins started, they were kind of bullying against it, right? So I think as more crypto native also somebody is, and if he's coming from a different generation and a different time of the market, then he can be also pretty skeptical about the next evolution of things. And there you need to kind of educate a lot. So with poker players, even we got pushback, right? So because poker, like there are a lot of players who think that 90% of all the tokens launched are being a scam, and they're probably right, to be honest, right? So but then you need to explain why this is not a token, this is not a typical token, this is a sports capital markets token. What does it entail? What's the vision? And how is it different to just, let's say a meme coin token, or even a social coin token, or a project token launched by a random team. So yeah, it's a lot of pushback, especially when the markets are down. But yeah, that's what makes it unique, and that's kind of how you build value, because if it was obvious, I think there were already 100 other companies doing it. So yeah, you need to be at the forefront. You need to convince these early adopters, and then you need to prove that the future, how you envision it, can actually happen.
Yeah. How do you convince people when you meet with these potential players, poker players, tennis players, to buy into what you guys are doing, that you proves that you're not a scam or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of trust building, just being an experienced just team, who's not just rugging a token, or just not being there. Yeah, I have a kid. Yeah, I'm a doxed entrepreneur. I've been building companies and investing companies for over 15 years. So I take this very seriously, and my whole reputation is on the line, right? So the project can fail, obviously, like companies can fail. It's like supernatural, but then a small percentage of companies where you had something in mind and other people were pushing against it will actually succeed. And that's how innovation, is generated, and how innovation is driven by. And you need to convince, obviously, these stakeholders that, there are risks involved, but you have a very clear vision on how the world might look in the next couple of years. And yeah, you need to understand the risks, and a lot of things can happen, also outside of your control, but even within your control, and the project can fail, and then maybe another company succeeds. But in the end, it comes back to trust, right? And do these stakeholders trust us in building this and doing everything possible to make this a success? With Bank, we managed to get early some of the world's best poker players behind it. So I think that's the most important step, and it's not the end. Obviously, we're just in the beginning. We need to prove out the model now. We need to show that it works. We need to build out the plans we have with Bank, also connected to FANstrack, and building this whole ecosystem around token. But yeah, convincing somebody, I think it's the most successful and most important trait of an entrepreneur and an early founder, that kind of people trust you and believe in you, and take the risk with you.
Yeah. I totally agree with that when it comes to trust, especially in crypto, right? And like you said, kind of given your background outside of crypto, right? You said you've been building businesses for 15 plus years. And I'm also curious about this in general, about building trust, right? And there's something that I think, especially maybe young entrepreneurs or people that are just starting out, people don't really know them and stuff like that. Kind of in your opinion, how do people build trust with people? How does that work? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a trait. Like it's a very important trait in a founder. So first of all, I think the founder needs to have a very clear view. So the founder needs to be visionary, and he needs to be like super convinced, despite all the obstacles and the pushback he receives, that this is how the world will look like, right? And I think if it starts with your own vision and your own kind of belief in what you're doing, and if you have that belief, then you need to articulate it. You need to be able to convince others about that belief. But that's obviously, there it helps to be, let's say, empathic. It needs to, maybe you need to be communicative, whatsoever. But in the end, if you don't believe in it, it doesn't work, right? I think, so it's not just like one thing, but it's all these things combined. But it's super important. Yeah, it's on a whole different. It's important when you deal with investors. It's important if you deal with users, if you deal with partners, whatsoever. So if you're enthusiastic about it, right, and if then also people believe, okay, this guy is not gonna leave tomorrow or the year after, right? So he's gonna do everything he can to make this happen, and that's how trust then works.
Yeah, I like how you say it's like a trait, right? That maybe I guess you can develop too, right, over time. And I'm sure you have in the last 15 years of building businesses and stuff like that. And like I also was curious, like as we kind of close out, kind of like a little bit about your background too, right? Your background story, building businesses, for the last 15 years. But I was just curious, like your upbringing, were you always someone like a self-starter that you always knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur, work in business, or was it something else?
I didn't know that in the beginning, and I come from from an average family, so we didn't have a lot of money. So I studied business, and that's where I kind of met some amazing people who had a lot of drive and were just very driven. And then my first startup experience was during university. Yeah, so then I had the chance to actually work on in some startup and like big venture companies, working in different countries, developing the ventures, and just sawing this like fast-paced venture ecosystem, which was still pretty underdeveloped back then. So that was like 2010, 2011. Eventually, like I was very excited about this, and I think I always had this like driving factor of like achieving goals, right? So I was, and that came from probably like being very athletic and doing a lot of sports in my early childhood, I guess. So I was always this very goal oriented, and if I had a goal both in the business but also on the sports side of things, like I was very disciplined to achieve that. And then eventually this further developed into this trait that I saw maybe like something other people didn't, and I had these assumptions, and I was so clear about it that eventually I think things happened. Yeah. So, and I was able to convince others to kind of work with me and work on that vision to make that happen. That's I think how how the whole thing was developed. So after uni, I started one company in the employee loyalty space. Yeah, so it's a very boring concept compared to what we do today. But basically, we negotiate discounts for employees of other companies and then offer those companies the program as an employee loyalty solution. And we did that over time for 1,000 companies. Had like 30 employees. I sold the company end of 2019, so right before COVID started. And then it was time for a change. So I spent then as an angel investor for many years just deploying the capital into venture startups. And that's how I entered the crypto world. I was an early investor in a couple of very successful venture-backed or VC-backed companies, and then got more and more excited about the space. But that's my story. So
yeah. No, it's cool how like it seemed like in college already, kind of like you said, you're very goal oriented, even growing up. Being a person that played a lot of sports growing up, and it seemed like after college you just started your own thing, right? It seems like you didn't really. I guess you got experience maybe from internships, but like you really just went into it without, I guess, working for someone first, right? You just tried it, right?
Yeah, I think it has advantages. It has also disadvantages, obviously, and not being disillusional. But as a young person, you don't have anything to lose, right? And that's very different if you, let's say, if you're 20 into the market, maybe working as a I don't know, business consultant for a big strategy firm whatsoever. So then you have a lot to lose, and your opportunity costs are just a lot. I think so. Yeah, my message probably like to my early me is or to other founders in that stage after uni, like yeah, get started. Obviously try to get a little bit just practical experience, but that's has also completely changed with AI nowadays. I think you have so many more new opportunities to just get started and test things out, and so it's so much quicker, so much faster. It's so much cheaper, obviously, to do things. But yeah, you need to be the type of person who wants to do it, yeah, because it's still with AI it doesn't help, right? So you have these up and downs. It's like it's a roller coaster. The next day can be very different to today, and then it just goes up and down, and just psychological from a character. You need to be able to deal with these upwards and downward swings. But yeah, definitely starting early has advantages. So yeah, I wouldn't wait too long.
Yeah, I like how you said that because I feel like at least the mindset maybe a few years ago, right? Or even now, right? People was like, I think I need to get experience first to be an entrepreneur or experience to be a founder, right? And you're saying like sometimes you just got to do it because you don't know until you do it. You don't know like this doesn't work, that doesn't work, and pivoting. And you're still young. If you fail, like if you can't do anything for the next 5 years, right? You're still hella young, right? And even you think about these tech companies now, like the Facebooks of the world, right? Zuckerberg, he started like when he was in college, right? Like yourself, right? Companies and stuff. And
I think actually, like even with AI nowadays, the skill what becomes more and more important is actually the social interaction and the social relationship you can develop with people, because not everything is going to go away, and like everything else will be democratized, so everybody will have kind of the same options to code stuff and vibe code stuff, and turn maybe an idea into a product. But then still you need to convince others, right? And in partly this might be other AI agents, then you are fine, but not always. So I think there will be, as AI becomes more and more developed and integrated into our business life, this like personal relationship will play a more and more important role. So this is definitely, I think, a skill I would recommend people to develop. So don't hide in your basement in front of your laptops. Just go out there, and it doesn't need to be in like colleges whatsoever. And so you can be just in your regular social life, but you need to continue to convince others to believe you and to follow you.
yeah, no, that's well said. Especially in an age of AI, I think that soft skill is going to be more of a premium and stuff like that. So
it's going to be a hard skill in the future. I'm very sure about it.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Jonathan, it was really good just to get to know you, get to know about what you're building and stuff like that. But before we close, how can people get involved with FANtium? How can people get involved with Bank, this token you're launching? As we're probably gonna release this during this time, this week. How can people get involved with what you're building?
Yeah, the best is X. So just follow us on X. It's Bank Me Fun. The public sale will go live on Wednesday. We will be the first spotlight launch partner of Metaplex. So we're very excited about that with their new launchpad and Genesis protocol. So yeah, launch pool will be the mechanic, and then the sale will last for 48 hours, and then with the TGE right followed after. So yeah, if you don't want to miss it, there's also a booster within the first hours of the public sale. So it usually makes sense to show up early. Make sure to follow Bank Me Fun, and yeah, we are always obviously happy to available for if you have any questions or want to get involved. If you're a poker player yourself, you need some funding for the next buy-ins, yeah, I'm happy to chat.
Yes, guys, if you guys play poker or professionally or something, definitely check out Bank if you need some help and stuff like that. But no, again, Jonathan, it's been really, really good to have you. And again, guys, if you guys want to learn more what Bank Fund is doing, FANtium, go on X, formerly Twitter. You can get all the information there. I'm sure in this podcast, I'm going to tag the handles and stuff like that there. But again, Jonathan, really appreciate you being here. And yeah, good luck with everything this week.
Thanks for your time. It was a pleasure. And yeah, we'll be in touch and see you on the table.